Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Latinas in Aviation, STEM at Home with Graciela Tiscareño-Sato. My name is Pam, and I'm the Family Literacy Specialist for the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. And we are honored to host this event along with the College Park Aviation Museum, and we are grateful for the opportunity to partner for Latinas in Aviation. This is part of our STEM at Home series, and we have past programs on demand on our PGCMLS YouTube channel. And now I would really like to bring on our guest today. And would you join me in welcoming Graciela Tiscareño-Sato, a U.S. Air Force veteran and one of the co-authors of Latinas in Aviation. She's going to read from her published children's book, Captain Mama's Surprise, La Sorpresa de Capitán Mamá, and demonstrate the building of an airplane skeleton. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Graciela. Thank you, Graciela, for joining us. And I can bring up your book if you like.
All right. Yeah. Well, let me just do a quick little intro of myself.
You're muted.
And then we'll... Let me see. I'm not muted. Let me check. One moment. I am not muted now, so you should be able to hear me.
Can you hear me, Graciela?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh. And I see you've got your book muted, the slide for your book, and I just can't hear you. Let me see what we can do.
Yeah, because we were just talking.
Let's see. You're unmuted on my end.
I'm changing settings on my end. Do you hear me?
No. Let's see. Folks, I'm going to put a pause on this and we're going to try one more time.
Okay,
so I'm going to remove us and see what we can do.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I didn't touch anything. I didn't touch anything, so let me try something here.
You're okay. You're back. I'm sorry. I think it was on my end. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. I didn't touch anything. So can you hear me now?
Yep. I think it was my headphones.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Sure.
You can begin when you're ready.
Okay. So you can hear me, yeah? Yay. Good. So I'm coming to you from Northern California, and I have a flight suit that I used to wear. Let me see. Can you see it back there? I put it back there so you could see it. That's my flight suit that I used to wear when I flew in the Air Force, and I flew for about 10 years. I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrants, Arturo and Tina Tiscareño from Colorado, and I got an Air Force ROTC scholarship to go to UC Berkeley. So my Air Force career started because I kept showing up in my counselor's office asking, how does a kid like me go to college? So I like to start with that so that anybody who's in middle school and high school can really start asking that question. How can I? Just believe it's possible and then ask, how can I? And ask a lot of people until you get the right people, information, and mentors. My high school counselor was married to an Air Force major. She brought me to her house for dinner. He told me about the ROTC scholarship, which paid for all 4 years for me to go to college. And that's how it happened. So did not grow up with an aviation background, did not grow up with a military background, but that's how it happened. And I feel a special responsibility because of that gift that was given to me, which is why I write these stories, so that no matter if you're speaking English or Spanish or some other language as a child, you too can know that you can grow up and do amazing things like fly airplanes, serve in the Air Force, or whatever else you want to do. So that's my intro, and I'm ready to start reading Captain Mama's Surprise, which is, by the way, the second book in the bilingual series, and it was inspired by my son, who called me Captain Mama when he saw me in my flight suit. And that story is told in the series debut here, Good Night, Captain Mama, Buenas noches, Capitán Mamá. And so the series continues with this one, and we go out to the plane where little Marco, the narrator, is on a field trip with his class to the airplane where his mother works. So here we go. Standing on the step of the bus exit, I see it, the big flying gas station where my mom works. I pull my hood on as the rain starts to hit me. There's the American flag painted on the tail. In my pocket, I feel the flag patch I still love to stick on my pajamas. It's one of the patches Mama gave me when I was little. I can't wait to show my mom off to my friends. They're yelling at me to get off the bus, eager to get inside the plane. When my parents took us to school earlier, Mama said, "See you at the jet, Marco." Is she more excited about me than this field trip? There's my big sister Mimi next to Mama, waving as Mama attaches the ladder to the airplane and climbs up. That's my cue. With my teacher, Miss Wimblad, I lead my class, and soon I'm climbing the ladder. I stop halfway and look up as Mimi steps off and into the plane's flight deck. Mama smiles down at me, and I climb up as fast as I can. Behind me, I hear, "Wow, this is cool," as my friend David climbs up. My whole second grade class is going to climb up, just like real air crew members. On the flight deck, my mom hugs me and greets my friends. She tells everyone to step into the back of the plane. Miss Calderon, our other teacher, is there, gathering kids like a mother duck with her ducklings. She touches our heads, counting that we're all there. "Welcome to the KC-135 aerial refueling tanker," says my Captain Mama with a big smile. "Marco and I have been looking forward to bringing you out to the plane," she says, ruffling my hair. Please turn around and meet the pilots who just joined us. Captain Vicky Castro, the aircraft commander, who sits in the left seat. Lieutenant Kai Tanabe, our co-pilot, in the right seat. And this is our crew chief, Sergeant Sergio. He makes sure everything on the plane works. Every jet has its own crew chief. Sergeant Sergio waves and says, "Welcome to my baby. I'm excited to show her to you." Meet Sergeant Christie, our boom operator, Mama continues, as a lady walks towards us from the back of the plane. "Welcome to my office," says the sergeant. My mom continues. "Today you'll meet the crew and see different parts of the plane. You'll learn why there's 4 crew members and what each of us does to fly this gas station." Mom waves to Miss Windblad, and our teacher counts several students, including me and my 2 best friends, Kiyoshi and Adriana. "Sergeant Christie, please take Miss Windblad's group to the boom pod." "Yes, ma'am," says Sergeant Christie. "Walk this way, kids," she says. We follow her to the back of the jet. I hear my mom say, "Miss Calderon and Mimi, take your group to Sergeant Sergio by the overwing window. Everybody else, follow me and Keiko, Marco's sister, up to the flight deck." My teacher and sister lead my friends back, and Keiko and my mom walk up front. The first thing I notice in the back are the rows of yellow metal tanks. "Are these bombs?" Kiyoshi asks, gently touching the tanks and reading my mind. "What an interesting question," Sergeant Christie replies. "They're not bombs. They're oxygen tanks, so we can breathe when we fly." Sergeant Christie asks Kiyoshi and Adriana to step down into the space below the floor, left of the oxygen tanks. She tells them to lay on their stomachs and then steps down on the right side. She looks up at me and says, "Follow me, Marco." What a tiny space I'm in. I'm on my stomach, just like Sergeant Christie. She's in the middle between my friends and me, and the ceiling almost touches our heads. Welcome to the business end of the plane, the part we call the boom pod. The boom is the long pipe with little wings that we use to pass gas from our airplane's gas tank to another airplane as we fly. And for this, I want to show you a model airplane. This is a model of the KC-135, and the part that we're talking about in the book is right here. This is the boom. So I like to show the model here because when we take off, it's like this. So the plane takes off and we fly like that. But during refueling, We lower it down and we plug it in to another airplane that comes flying from behind, as you're about to find out. Okay? But I find it very useful to show you with models so you can see that there's this entire operation in the back called the boom. And that's why it's a flying gas station. And she, Christy, controls it from the back, from the boom pod. So she says that we use the boom to pass gas from our plane's gas tanks to another airplane as we fly. And then pass gas. That's funny, Kiyoshi snickers. Adriana rolls her eyes. I thought you'd like that, Sergeant Christie says, smiling. It's my job to connect us safely to other airplanes. This is cool. There's a joystick back here, Adriana observes. Yep, sure looks like one, doesn't it? Sergeant Christie replies. I use this to control to fly the boom around when we're in the air. These are the 3 most important gauges I look at. They tell me how far side to side the boom is, how long it is, and how far up or down it is. If the pilot of the plane we're refueling moves too much, I disconnect the boom to keep us safe. My favorite illustration. Is it scary to connect to another airplane when flying, I ask? No, it's not scary because I've been trained for many hours to do this, replies the sergeant. I'm trained for emergencies too. There's no need for fear when you've learned to do something well. How far away is the other airplane when you're connected to it? Kiyoshi asks. Usually I'm between 36 and 48 feet from the other plane, she answers. And that, by the way, is the length of a school bus. That's the distance right here. The boom itself is 28 feet long, and I can extend it up to 19 feet more during aerial refueling. Do you like working here, I ask? It's the coolest job in the world, she tells us. I open my window and see a military jet coming up for fuel. Can't do a mission without gas, right? I wish I could see you do that, Adriana says. It must be amazing. Maybe someday you will, replies the boom operator. Wishes sometimes come true. Are you ready to go to the flight deck? Yeah, let's do it, we exclaim. We crawl out of the tiny boom pod, walk past Miss Calderon, Sergeant Sergio, and our friends. They're doing something with the red crank in the floor, and I hear Sergeant Sergio say, just in case the landing gear doesn't come down. This is how we bring it down. If it gets stuck, we crank it down. It's an emergency procedure. So we enter the flight deck, and my mom smiles at us. Welcome back, kids. Come in. I squeeze in near my mom in the co-pilot seat, and my friends are all around us. Captain Castro, the pilot in the left seat, says, Hi, everybody. I am the senior pilot on the crew, aircraft commander. I'm in charge of the plane, the crew, and the mission every time we fly. I've been flying this plane for over 6 years, and I have over 2,500 flight hours. This is Lieutenant Kaitanabe, my co-pilot. Together with our navigator, we are the officers on the crew. We work with our boom operator to fly this plane and get the mission done in time and safely. Kiyoshi blurts out, Excuse me, where is the fuel stored on the plane? How does it get to the boom? Lieutenant Tanabe explains. The 10 fuel tanks are in both wings and under your feet. During the refueling part of the flight, our boom operator tells us when we are connected to the other plane. We can't see what's going on back there. No rear view mirrors. When Sergeant Christie says, contact, I look here at this button and confirm we are connected to the receiver plane. Then I push these switches to get our fuel to flow from our tanks to the boom and into the other plane, he continues. My job as co-pilot includes doing takeoffs and landings, managing our fuel system, and keeping the plane balanced. My mom turns sideways in her seat and continues. We use these headsets to talk to each other inside the plane because it's really loud when we're flying, just like these. My station includes radar controls so we can avoid bad weather and navigation systems to get us where we need to go. With these systems and some fast mental math, I keep our mission on time so we can refuel airplanes anywhere in the world. These colorful charts help us to always know where our plane is over the earth, she said, holding up a colorful chart with mountains, oceans, rivers, many lines, numbers, and words. It looked nothing like maps we use in our car. I asked Captain Castro, is it scary to be the one in charge? It's not scary, she tells me. It is a big responsibility, yes. I love to be the leader of this excellent crew. I've loved everything about jets since I was a little girl, just like your mother. This is a special airplane and a cool job. Are you ready to go back to Sergeant Sedgio, my mom asks. We turn to leave the flight deck, and we notice the lights are out in the back. As we walk out of the flight deck, my mother turns on the cabin lights, and that is when I see our backpacks hanging on the seats. Surprise! Today is not just a field trip to see the jet. We're going to take you all flying, my mom says excitedly. I feel my jaw drop and look around. David says, what? Really? Yeah, all right, yells Kiyoshi as he pumps and jumps with his fist in the air. Yoo-hoo, says Adriana. She hugs me. I cannot believe this. My first plane ride. Is it true, Mama? I ask, still in shock, feeling my eyes open wide. Yes, it is true, sweetheart, she replies with a wide grin and a hug. Go back. Strap in your seat. Our adventure is about to begin. And that is where this ends. You'll see in the back we have a glossary of all the aviation words that you saw and a glosario en español. So you can learn how to say really cool things like tren de aterrizaje, which is landing gear. You can learn to say all the words in español because you might have noticed the entire story is also in Spanish. And then I'm going to show you an activity that you'll want to do at home and at school. And I'd love to come to some of your local schools virtually. And also when I'm going to be in College Park for the October 2nd weekend, I'm going to be around for a couple of days after the event on the 2nd. I'm going to be around the 4th and 5th. So teachers, if you're listening and you want me to come into your classroom, I'm going to have a little bit of time in my calendar. So let's talk about that. Here's the project. And we call this STEM at Home because what we do, I'm going to move the book, we copy the template, and then we find things like toothpicks, chopsticks, other little sticks you might have. And then what we do is I ask you, where is the airplane skeleton? You know, just like people have skeletons, you can't see our bones because we have skin. It's the same with the airplane. So what we do is we get some glue and we use our brains and we think, how is the structure of this airplane? What does it look like? You know, does it have a big spine like that? Or is it like, you know, do you think it's maybe, you know, a bunch of long pieces like that and some cross pieces? Or do you think it's more like a fish? I've seen people do things like put a bunch of little sticks like this, like that. But it's really about you thinking, how is this airplane assembled? Okay. So there is not an answer that I'm going to show you to tell you how it is. It is a thinking project because there's real structure here. And I want you to give it a little bit of engineering thinking and figure out how you think it's put together. And if you heard in the book, the co-pilot said that it has to stay balanced. That's part of it, right? The plane has to be very balanced, empty, because then when you put fuel in, you start moving around the 10 tanks and you have to rebalance. But anyway, so that's the project so that you can learn more, do some more thinking, and apply some basic engineering principles. And then we do lesson plans related to math, to science. We do lesson plans related to writing. So there's all those possibilities to keep the learning going. And what I'd love to do, Pam, is if you have any questions or if there's questions from the audience, I'd be happy to answer them about, you know, my time in the Air Force, my flight suit in the back, you know, how did this book series start, anything about flying, anything about being an author. I'm open to whatever questions you have.
All right. Well, folks, if you want to put anything in the chat, I can pass them on to Graciela. If we have any...
Pam, if you have any questions while we're waiting for that, I will answer them.
When did you first think that you wanted to be a pilot, and where were you living? What were your,
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado in a very small town. Biggest employer is a meatpacking plant and agriculture. So it was the furthest thing from my mind. The Air Force Academy was a couple hours away. I didn't even know, okay, because my parents are from Mexico and we had a different kind of life and I didn't have that view. But it was really when, and I had never been on an airplane at all in my life
Oh,
up until
wow.
being an adult at all, like not even one time. And so it really started with what I said at the very beginning is I wanted to go to college. And so I kept showing up at my counselor's office asking, how does a kid like me go to college? And her husband was an Air Force major. And so she said, come to my house for dinner and he will tell you what he did because he had even more siblings than you did. So this is a case of mentoring. My high school counselor mentored me to apply to college, but her husband mentored me into the 4-year scholarship that made it possible to pay for college because the Air Force paid for it. So that's important because they paid for me to go get my education first, and then I went into the service. It's the opposite of what
a lot of people do.
A lot of people do because the recruiters are in the class or in the high school recruiting you, right? But the recruiters have their job to do is to get you to enlist right now after high school. They're not talking about college and scholarships. Part of the reason I do this. So halfway through college, to answer your question about when did I want to fly, we had a summer program where they took us to different bases to meet different officers doing different jobs. I mean, like actual career exploration, right? Like which you don't really get in typical high school setting, but in the Air Force, halfway through college, the summer program, they took us around. I was majoring in architecture, which was my degree. And so I was meeting civil engineering people and, builders, but they're telling me you're not going to get to build anything. We repair roads. We repair potholes. So the career that I was romanticizing isn't what I think it's going to be. And the very next day we went to a pilot training base and we signed up for orientation flights. And I got scheduled with a female pilot who took me up and let me fly and, some rolls. Again, my first flight ever was in a military training plane. And I just thought it was a joyride for fun, like a roller coaster or something. But when we landed, she's like, this is something you can do. And you obviously enjoyed yourself. So go back and tell the staff you want to fly. I'm like, what? I thought I had to go do civil engineering. She's like, no, you don't. That's just your academic major. So she told me after I got my first flight that just go back and say, I'm interested in flying. And then there's a process and you get selected for pilot training or something, right? And so I got selected for navigator training, which is, on a crew airplane like this, you've got pilot, navigator, and then boom operator. So in the military, navigator, it's its own aerospace career and its own set of wings, like slightly different from the pilot. And so we're like the mathematicians. We do all the changes in the mission. When we go in a tactical environment, a wartime setting, we're doing a lot of the communications with the airplanes controlling us and then replanning missions and then really doing the math to get us together. So long answer, but it's an important answer that you don't always have to know what you're doing or want to do when you're young. Opportunities come. And my message is always put yourself in a setting like a university, in my case, like a program where other opportunities that you never would have heard about can present themselves. And that's how it happened for me. And then from there, I was the only woman in my class training out of a class of 32. I think 25 of us graduated. I was the only woman, and it doesn't matter because the plane just needs you to be technically competent in what you're doing. And it was a really amazing career. So much so that, again, I'm inspired to write these children's books.
This is wonderful. And it just shows how important that teachers, community members, family members can be in mentoring and sharing opportunities with kids, just all the different experiences to put into their brains to decide what they might want to take part in. That is really exciting. We do have a question here.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it from Monica. And she says, how do you address questions about fear of flying?
That's a good one. Well, it's natural to be afraid of things you don't know, right? Because the human imagination is amazing. And we can come up with all kinds of disasters while sitting in a chair, right? So I understand that, but it's in a category of things that you don't yet know. If you remember in the book, There's no need for fear when you've learned to do something well. And about the training, the way that you address fear of flying, I guess maybe you're asking as a passenger, Monica. Um, here's I'll appeal to your logical brain. Okay, there's always going to be that, what do we call it, irrational fear of flying. But I always like to tell this story. I remember reading an article in a couple years ago about a lady driving down the freeway in Los Angeles on a freeway with a cutting board, a knife, and a cucumber. So while you're driving and you're on the ground where you think you're safe, you're actually in much more danger than when you're airborne in an airplane. And a woman slicing a cucumber with a knife going down the freeway is a typical thing that happens in too many cars. People are distracted. You're not professional drivers, right? So I like to say, if you're afraid of flying, then shift it around and realize how safe you are. Because when you're flying, everybody who's operating the vehicle, every pilot that's up there is licensed. And if they're training, they've got an instructor right next to them that's licensed. And then you've got air traffic control that is separating the airplanes, vertically and then also like this. So you have never been safer than when you are airborne in an airplane. It's when you land and you have to get your rental car or go home and you're on the freeway with lady cutting cucumber in the car. That's when you're in danger. So that's my appeal to the logical brain of just how we are so much safer statistically and just realistically in the air. And then, also just enjoy the view when you're airborne. Instead of like being afraid of being inside the plane, just enjoy the view, like see the clouds go by, or when you're climbing through the clouds, go, wow, we're going through a cloud. I mean, just like enjoy the moment when you're airborne. That's what I would do.
That's great advice. I've always heard that it was safer flying than driving.
Oh,
And
like
now that sort
you
of
would
helps me
not
to
even
understand.
believe it. Yes. Yes.
Are there any other questions while we've got Graciela here? I'm trying to think. My daughter is a flight attendant, and some of the airlines have a attendant to pilot program where they can go back. And so I thought that was very exciting.
Yeah, I've seen that. Well, they're already in the system and they're already on the plane. So it's just a matter of learning new skills and being in the front. And I've known women who have done that, which I think is so cool. So, I want to just mention real quick, one of the things that you did in the introduction is this program is leading up to the event that's happening at the College Park Aviation Museum on October 2nd.
On the 2nd.
And so this is an opportunity for people to know about that. But I'm going to switch over and speak Spanish for a moment. Los invitamos en la comunidad que vengan al aeropuerto y al museo el sábado, el día 2 de octubre, para conocernos a todas las escritoras de este libro, Latinas en Aviación, y escuchar las historias de cómo entramos a las carreras de aviación. Y pues vamos a estar ahí con familias y vamos a juntarnos a como 15 o 16 las escritoras del 22 en el libro. Me han dicho que son como 15 o 16 que van a venir. So va a ser un evento muy único y los invitamos que vengan ese día, el sábado, el día 2 de octubre, y voy a estar ahí. Yo estoy en California, pero voy a viajar a Maryland para estar ahí a conocer todas las otras mujeres en el libro y a conocer por primera vez la escritora Jacqueline Ruiz Camacho, la pilota de Chicago.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I don't see any other questions. Last go round. I also put in the chat the outline of the airplane that Graciela had shared with me earlier so that you could try it on your own. I'll share it up there again. And
yeah, there you go. Yeah, and what it is, there's a blogger who is a homeschooling bilingual mom, Mami Maestra, and she asked me if she could feature the project because when the book first came out, she was really excited about doing the activity at home with her kids. And so basically she just put the template that's located in the book on her site. So you can just download the PDF, and then she actually did some little instructions in there of how to do the project. But it's something that can be done so easily, and you can do it multiple times. And I've seen kids get really creative and make it a 3-dimensional model. So it's just a simple plan view of the KC-135. And then just really whatever materials you have with glue and sticks to really think about how is this plane even put together. because I bet you've never had that thought before. And it's a fun activity to do. So yeah, thank you for sharing the template. That's a perfect way to do it. I think you're muted.
Of course I am. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us at the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. And thank you to the College Park Aviation Museum. And thank you, Graciela, for sharing this wonderful book and activity with us. And you can join us for other Hispanic Heritage Month programming, and also come to the College Park Aviation Museum on the 2nd of October. And any last words, Graciela?
Well, I'm available for conversation. Find me on Instagram at it's a long account name, but I went ahead and did it. It's Captain Mama, Capitan Mama. So it's just all together, Captain Mama, Capitan Mama. Find me on Instagram, and then you could ask me more questions there. And again, just would love to do more programs like this, or come in and do other programs in your local schools and other library branches.
Thank you very much again.
Thank
Everyone,
you, Pam.
thank you for joining us. Be safe and be well.